We're on Perek Yud Daled Pasuk Yud. I apologize. Yesterday we didn't have Shiur. I wasn't feeling well. Okay, page 14, page Yud Daled Yud is on top of page 370. Top page 70. Okay, so Jewish people are going out and Paro's chasing them. And then it says, Uparo Hikriv. Paro is getting closer. Vayusu b'nei Yisrael es einehem, top of page 370. They raise their eyes, v'inei Mitzrayim nosei achareim. Vayiru me'od vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael Hashem. The Jewish people are very afraid, and they call out to Hashem. So one of the ideas here is Paro Hikriv. Paro Hikriv, he brought the Jewish people closer to Tshuva, like Kiruv. Paro actually brought them close to Tshuva by chasing them and scaring them. They're obviously terrified, and you have they're being chased by an army of Egyptians, and they got to sea, and then they start complaining to Moshe Rabbeinu, and this is a bit of a flaw. Vayomer al Moshe hamiblein kvarim b'Mitzrayim lekachtam l'mus b'Midbar. There aren't any graves in Egypt. You took us to die in the desert. What did you take us out of Egypt for? Just to go die over here? We could have died in Egypt and we would at least know where we're buried. Here we're going to be out in the desert with unmarked graves. Who knows what's going to be? This we told you in Egypt. Leave us alone. Leave us alone and we'll serve the Egyptians. We'd rather be slaves in Egypt than go die in the desert. We told you that. So Moshe Rabbeinu, now we're going to come back to this. This is going to be a misstep by the Jewish people. What are you complaining about? You know, I took you out. So far we've taken care of you. What are you getting all okay, it is a pretty intimidating situation. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't have gone and complained. Vayomer Moshe Elam, Al Tira'u. Don't be afraid. Hisyatzvu uru es Yeshuas Hashem, asher yasa lechem hayom. Just watch how Hashem will deliver you. Ki asher isam es Mitzrayim hayom. You see the Egyptians today. Lo sosifu liros amod adlam. You're never going to see them again. Now you see them, soon you won't. Right? They're gonna end up. You're going to see they're going to get clobbered. Then he says an interesting line. Hashem yilochem lochem, Hashem will battle for you, v'atem tacharishun, you be silent. So the plain meaning seems to be, don't worry, guys, stop complaining. Hashem will battle for you, you got nothing to worry about. The Meshech Chochmah says this also refers to the future. Hashem yilochem, now that means like this. Right now the Jewish people have a somewhat valid claim. Listen, you took us out, we followed you out, Hashem took us out, and Hashem took us out, he should really be protecting us. So there is a somewhat valid claim over here. What about in the future, where the Jewish people don't have any merits? Then what's going to be? So the Meshech Chochmah says this also refers to the future. Hashem yilochem, Hashem will battle for you. Ve'atem tacharishun, even when you will have to be silent, when you will not have a valid, legitimate defense. You will not have a valid, legitimate claim against Hashem. Even then, Hashem yilochem lachem ve'atem tacharishun. Even when you'll have to be silent, Hashem will still battle for you. I mean, sometimes we see that the Jewish people have been saved, even if we're not necessarily as deserving as we should be. And that's what it's going in various times in history. You could argue even now. You know, it's not like we're just marvelous. You know, we do have some flaws. I don't know if you haven't noticed, but we do have some flaws. Now, watch this. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. This is very strange. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. Ma titzak elai. What are you yelling out to me for? Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael. This is very strange. Can you imagine telling Jews, what are you davening for? I mean, that's all we do. We're always davening. Somebody just said to me, is today going to be davening for your Parnasa today? Today's davening for Parnasa Day. I mean, listen, we also got Shacharis, and we also got Mincha, and we also got Mariv, and davening for Parnasa Day. I got news for you. I davened this morning. I already davened for Parnasa. Today's not. And Hashem says, what are you yelling to me for? Tell the Jewish people they should start moving. Tell the Jewish people to start moving. Okay, so what's going on? They're standing by the sea. Why not daven? Aren't we always supposed to be davening and asking for Hashem? Says, no, what are you yelling to me? Get moving, boys. The answer is like this. What's the expression? He could talk the talk, but he can't walk the walk. Isn't that the expression? Okay. The Jewish people, there's faith and there's faith. We're at the edge of the sea. And Hashem says, do you believe? I believe. Okay, start walking. I got to work on my belief a little bit. There's always room for more belief to build up. No. Let's see your belief in action. I want to see action now. I don't want the davening now. I want the action now. What that means is like this. To actually walk into the sea, the Jews need a miracle. This is going to be a miracle, the miracle of miracles, and it's going to be a nature-defying miracle. In order to get a miracle that defies nature, you have to be willing yourself to defy nature. How do you defy nature? Walk into the sea. That's defying nature. Now, if you're willing to actually walk in, by the way, there's a source that says, let's say a Jew is facing a life-threatening situation. A Jew is told, if you don't worship idols, we'll kill you. The Jew has to give up his life. So I forgot where the original source is. If a person, under those circumstances where they're going to die, al kiddush Hashem, under those circumstances, if a person is hoping for a miracle, that means he's willing to die, but he's hoping for the miracle will not happen. If a person is willing to die, and with no thought of the miracle, then the miracle either can or will happen. Why? What does it matter? Why does that matter? Why? If he's hoping, it's natural to hope for a miracle. The person says, I'm willing to die, but I certainly hope there'll be a miracle over here. Then there won't be a miracle. Why not?
It's a higher level of emunah.
Oh, the answer is that because it's natural, it's very natural to hope for a miracle. Therefore, you get the miracle which has to transcend nature. The most basic instinct of a human being is to want to live. A basic instinct of any human being is to stay alive. So if you're still within basic human instinct mode, which is I hope for a miracle, that means you're within nature, which is natural, which is fine. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. A guy who's willing to die al kiddush Hashem, even hoping for a miracle, it's a tremendous madrega. He's at a very high level. There's one level higher, where the person completely is willing to die with no thought of being saved. That means he's gone beyond the most basic natural drive of a human being, which is to want to stay alive. At that point, he can or will have experienced the miracle, because he himself has transcended nature. You understand? So here, Hashem says to Moshe, tell them to start moving. Tell them get moving. I don't want tefillah. This is not the time for tefillah. I want to see action. I want to see faith in action right now. That's what I want to see. My father, Olav Shalom, used to say, put your money where your religion is. Sometimes people talk from, and you can wear a gartel, and you do a lot of shuckling, and you talk all about faith and everything else. Are you willing to spend money on the tefillin? No? Yeah, okay, I don't want to hear about it. Yeah, let's see you spend. That's put your money where your religion. That means you're religious. You're willing. You gave somebody your word about a business deal, and you're not going to break your word because somebody made you a better offer. Now you're a religious guy. I knew a guy who was in real estate, a Kollel guy. He was involved in real estate. He was trying to sell, like a sideline. He was trying to sell, I think, an office building. And for a long time, he was trying to sell this office building. And finally, he's got somebody who made him an offer, and he agreed to sell him the building. The next day, he got an offer for an extra $40,000. Now, according to halacha, the fact that he agreed, the first guy, it's not binding. Not binding, it's not actionable and based in, but you shouldn't break your word. And this other guy offered him $40,000 more, and he said to the guy, I'm sorry, I already told somebody I would sell it to him. My father so he said, now that's a religious guy. That's right. There you're putting it into action. That's the test. Hashem says, let's see you move. Okay. Now look what he says to Moshe Rabbeinu. And here, people, when it comes to the splitting of the sea, when it comes to the splitting of the sea, that's almost like the classic miracle. So what did a skeptic say? We'll see how the Torah describes it. Raise your staff and extend your hand on the sea. Now, there are two opinions over here. Does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to extend his staff on the Yam Suf? Or does Hare Mesmatcha mean remove the staff and extend your bare hand on the sea? There are commentaries that say extend your bare hand because that makes it more direct. If you hold a staff out over the sea, some people think, oh, it's the magical staff. Now I want to show you, it's your hand pointing to the sea. Uvka'eu, split the sea. V'yavo v'nei yisrael b'soch hayam bayabasha. And the Jewish people will walk through the sea in the dry land. Okay, now watch this. We're going to read a couple more psukim, then we're going to explain this. So the first step here is people say, well, the Torah is going to describe that the wind blew all night and the sea split. It was a natural occurrence. You've heard that, right? The Bible critics say it was a natural occurrence. It is certainly described naturally. But, why did it happen exactly at the moment that Moshe Rabbeinu points his finger right when 600,000 people need it? That's a pretty good call. That, okay, watch this natural event. Okay, here's a natural event for you right now, right when we need it. The miracle, part of the miracle is, and the evidence of the miracle, let me hold for a few minutes. I'll get to all questions later. I want to get through a few points here. Part of the miracle is that right at the moment that you pointed, it split. You called your shot. That's pretty impressive. That it splits right now. But one second. The Egyptians are going to go in. And I will take honor. I will be honored by what I do with Paro and all of his soldiers. Now, if you look at Pasuk Yud Tes, one more Pasuk, second line on 372. Vayisa malach Elokim holech lifnei machane Yisrael, the angel of God that normally went before the camp, vayelech ma'achareim, he stood behind the Jewish people, vayisa amud ha'onan mipneim, vayamod me'achareim, and now the pillar of cloud goes and stands behind the Jewish people. There's nothing to help them at this point. No angel, no pillar. It's all you walking into the sea. So what happens? The Jewish people are now put to the ultimate test. Who is the first person who jumps into the water? Nachshon ben Aminadav. Nachshon ben Aminadav jumps into the water from the tribe of Yehuda. He's the one who's going to jump into the swirling waters before the waters have split. And the water, you're jumping into the ocean. Into the sea. Sorry, you're jumping into the sea. Where does Nachshon ben Aminadav get that ability from? To be moser nefesh, to be willing to die for the cause. He doesn't know that he's going to be saved. None of the Jewish people know they're going to be saved. As a matter of fact, if you take a look back again at Pasuk, one page back, 4 lines from the bottom. Why does Hashem say to Moshe Rabbeinu, you notice 4 lines from the bottom on page 370, that Hashem says to Moshe, tell the Jewish people they should start moving, ve'ata harei mesmatcha, and you pick up your staff. Why do you need the word ve'ata? It seems redundant. It says, tell the Jewish people to start moving, and you pick up your staff. He's talking to Moshe right now. He could have just said, tell the people to move, pick up your staff, and stretch it out on the water. The Jewish people didn't know the sea was going to split. Ve'ata means only you know this. They don't know this. Let's see how they do without knowing it. You're just telling them go. So Nachshon jumps in. Where did Nachshon get that ability from? Well, who was his grandma? He comes from the tribe of Yehuda. Who was his grandmother or great-grandmother? Yehuda's wife, Tamar. What did Tamar do? When before Yehuda admitted that he was in the paternity suit, first paternity suit in history. What did she do? She's ready to die. She was. She'll go into the fire unless Yehuda admits. Oh, you got some genetic Mesiras Nefesh genes here that are then transmitted to the next generation. And all through history, Jewish people have been willing to die for a cause. Where does that come from? Where do they get that ability to die for the cause? It's coming from genetics. Avram Avinu went into a fire. Tamar goes into a fire. And now her descendant, Nachshon ben Aminadav, is willing to jump into the sea. So then it says like this. Now I'm going to tell you something that's, I can believe this. Vayavo ben machane Mitzrayim ben machane Yisrael, vayehi anon ve'achoshech vayores alayla velo korav zel zeh kolai. The two camps didn't come near each other. And the Gemara on this pasuk, the Gemara says that the angels wanted to sing at the downfall of the Egyptians. And Hashem said to the angels, don't sing. My say yodai tovim bayam. My creations are drowning in the sea. Sure, you're going to go and you're going to sing? While my creations are drowning, you're going to go sing? That's not the time. Yeah, the Rishaim, they're the Egyptians. Well, what are you going singing for? What are the angels going singing for? Now, that obviously begs the question. We'll see that the Jewish people do sing. Oz Yashir Moshe. We'll see that we say that every day. Oz Yashir. So the basic answer is there's a difference if you're personally involved or if you're just the angels aren't involved. The Jewish people are actually the victims over the potential victims. So when the Egyptians drowned, the Jewish people, they get, you're allowed to celebrate the downfall of your enemies. But if you're just a guy watching from the side, that's the plain understanding. I'll tell you, it's got a completely different concept. Do you remember the story when King Chizkiyahu was surrounded? The armies of Sancheriv were threatening to overrun Yerushalayim. 185,000 soldiers. And that's the lowest estimation. There were 185,000 of them besieging Yerushalayim. And King Chizkiyahu there's really nothing they could do. And what happened? Hashem said, don't worry. And the next morning, all 185,000 woke up dead. Or they be dead. They didn't wake up dead. They didn't wake up. They were dead. 185. How did they die? 185,000. I mean, they could all have heart attacks. How did they die? So there are different opinions in the Gemara. There's one opinion in the Gemara that says the angels sang Shira to Hashem, which they do every day. The angels sing, they sing praises to God. And Hashem allowed those soldiers of Sancheriv to hear the angels singing. And that hearing the singing killed them. How do you understand? Bad voices? No, angels have good voices. Angels have good voices. If you tell me it's one of the current contemporary singers or something else, the angels have good voices. How did it kill them? How did that kill them? What does that mean? That they heard the angels singing, the angels killed them? The best analogy I could give you is looking at my grandchildren on a Friday night after I've given them candy and sugar. Right? They're out of control. Not anymore, because I kind of, but they could get out of control. And if my kids get me ticked off, then I make sure they get out of, the grandchildren get out of control. That's a weapon. So, you give kids candy, what happens? Give them too much sugar, what happens? They start buzzing around. Imagine eating, if you've ever eaten something really sweet, and you're like, I can't take it anymore, right? You can't take it anymore. It's so sweet, I can't take it. It's too much. Kids have an incredible capacity for sugar. Adults, three what do you call it? Three bites of cotton candy. I've had enough. Kids could, there's no limit. Imagine something that's so sweet you just can't take it. I'm going to use it as an analogy. When a person is not on a high enough spiritual level, and they hear the most ruchni thing that's possible, the angels singing, their neshama can't take it. The neshama just bursts out of the body. You can't take it. It was a torture. It was absolutely a torture to see something so spiritual, and you can't even handle it. You can't even handle it. It's too much. They died from the singing of the angels. So one of the commentaries says, you know what the angels wanted over here? They said to Hashem, let us sing and put them to death through singing. So Hashem said to Gemara, he said, no, my handiwork is drowning in the sea, and you want to sing? So the plain meaning again is that my handiwork refers to the Egyptians. But the Mefarshim say he wasn't talking about the Egyptians. He was talking about the Jewish babies that they drowned. My handiwork was drowning. They drowned my children. They don't deserve to die with the singing. They deserve to die by drowning in the sea. And that's what it means that they were singing. The angels were singing and they drowned. Okay, now, watch this. Vayet Moshe es yodo al hayam. Moshe extends his hand on the sea. Vayolech Hashem es hayam beruach kodimah kol halayla. Now there's a wind that blows. Vayosem es hayam lecharava. The sea becomes dry. Vayibaku hamayim. The water splits. Now, what does it mean the water splits? So the Medrash says all the water in the world split. Not only the sea. Oh, do you know that? Did you ever hear that, Medrash? The sea split. All water in the world. A guy was drinking in whoever where in Mesopotamia, and as he drank, it ran down both sides of his face because the water in the cup split.
What about the water in your blood?
The water in the blood, I don't know about that, but the water in the sea, the water in the, inside the bodies.
Yeah.
Why, we have water in our bodies? Yeah, 90%, yeah. But at the end of it, I don't know about that. It says all bodies of water split. It doesn't say all waters of bodies split. Okay, so I'm not sure. It says all. It says all bodies of water split. What now? I was just thinking of the possible. Can you imagine a guy's taking a bath? Guy's like, a nice hot bath. And he sits down in the bathtub, right on cold enamel. the bathtub water split. Guy takes a shower, it sprays out. Or worse yet, the guy's doing the platform jump at the Olympics. Yeah, I hate when that happens. Oh no! And then the guy holds up the 9.5. Too much of a splash. The possibilities are limited. Back in the day when I did cliff jumping, so in Acapulco. Why are you laughing? Cliff jumping in Acapulco. You never did that? Chickens. You never. I've seen. Well, let's say I've seen pictures of guys doing cliff jumping. Doesn't that count? I actually cliff jumping in Acapulco. Oh no! So the actually I once read that when these guys do this cliff, there's one place where the guys run off the cliff and they jump, and they actually got the bottom extends out 17 feet. So when they jump, they actually got to hit and got to jump enough that it carries you over 70. You would do it, wouldn't you? So what's the big deal? 17 feet. What's the big deal? So that's what it is. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean? All the water in the world split. Okay, I told you when it comes to a medrash, either it is on a literal level or it's not on a literal level. It's certainly communicating an idea. It could literally be. But it's also communicating some sort of idea. What's the idea that the Medrash says all the water in the world split? What does that mean? What is that? What is the Medrash telling us? What do you say, Len?
It wanted everybody to know about the miracle.
Excellent. When played X, very good. The first explanation is not only they wanted everybody to know in the past. If you ask anybody today, name a miracle, what's the first thing that comes to the mind? Right? Okay, some say the 69 Mets, but that's not. It's a miracle. They were called the Miracle Mets, right? That's what they were called. Boo, right? If you want a miracle, the splitting of the sea. That's the first thing that comes to mind is the splitting of the sea. It was such a well-known idea. That's why I say the Medrash says all the water in the world split. Either literally it happened, or the miracle was so well-known that it's as if all the water in the world split, which case everybody would know about it. And that's why I say the Medrash has an allegorical level. It may have the literal level and it may not. Midrashim could or could not have the literal level, but it's certainly communicating the truth. It's certainly telling us a fact. It's telling us an idea. So it could be that the what do you call it, that's on the one hand. I heard another phenomenal explanation that it allows for skeptics to be skeptical. It means if it was only the Red Sea that split, they go, wow. Ooh. All the water in the world split at the same time. So then you get all the skeptics like, well, there's obviously some sort of magnetic force that suddenly was activated in the entire world. It leaves opportunity for those who want. That's why people say, well, if miracles would happen today, then I would be a believer. No, you wouldn't. They wouldn't, because there are miracles today. If you want to look around, they're playing miracles around us. And I would do a miracle for you, so you'd find an explanation for that also. A person who wants to not believe will always find his excuse to not believe. And therefore, all the waters of the world split. That allows, one of the Mefarshim say, that allows for the skeptics to come along to maintain free choice of how you analyze the data. And the skeptics can then come along and say, oh, yeah, well, it's a magnetic force. Oh, sure. And how come this magnetic force only took place right when the 600,000 people needed it? That they don't have an explanation for. Well, I guess they're walking through the desert activates magnetic forces or something. They'll always come up with some sort of nonsense to go and explain the phenomenon. Number two. Number three, you were talking about Parnasa, the Parnasa prayer. Okay. So I want to tell you something. You know, the Gemara says two things. The Gemara says, Kosher lezavgan kekriyas yamsuf. It's as hard for Hashem to matchmake, to pair off people as the splitting of the sea, number one. And number two, it says, Kosher parnasaso shel adam kekriyas yamsuf. Person's parnasa is as difficult as the splitting of the sea. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says that. Kasha parnasa. Parnasa is as hard as the splitting of the sea. We take it for granted. You go to work. You get paid more than you deserve. That's a good job. Kasha, hold all the questions for a few minutes. Kasha parnasa shel adam kekriyas yamsuf. The question is, what's the obvious question on either of those statements? That it's as hard as kriyas yamsuf. What's the obvious question?
There are some things that are harder for God to do.
What's that?
There are some things that are harder for God to do.
Excellent. In other words, it's not hard for nothing's hard for Hashem. What does it mean? It's as hard for Hashem to provide parnasa as kriyas. Kasha parnasasa shel adam kekriyas yamsuf. What, kriyas yamsuf was hard for Hashem? What does that mean? What does that even mean? What does it even mean? It's hard for Hashem kekriyas yamsuf. So, or it's hard for Hashem to match people up. So I always wondered about this because that's an excellent question. Well, what does it mean? What's hard for Hashem? It's not hard for Hashem. It's zap and it happens. What's the problem? The answer goes back to the Jewish people complaining. The Jewish people are in a situation right now where there was a prosecution against them. And the prosecution was, right before the sea split, the prosecutor in heaven said, they're worshipped by idol worshipers, and there were idol worshipers. Why do they deserve to be saved any more than them? There's the Jewish people were involved in idol worship in Egypt. Why do they deserve to be saved? That means that the difficulty is not for Hashem. It's not hard for Hashem. The challenge is for you to earn to be deserving of it to happen. That's the challenge. The Jewish people, had you not fetched about Moshe Rabbeinu, why'd you take us out of Egypt to bury us? Then the Jewish people, you'd be okay. Then we'd have the miracle for you. You've deserved the miracle. Once you open your mouths, that just brings back, listen, you want to be in Egypt? You know what you did in Egypt? You were idol worshipers also. So why do you deserve it any more than them? The difficulty doesn't refer to Hashem doing the miracle. The difficulty is for you, the human being, me, the human being, do I deserve it or not? So what happens with Parnasa? So theoretically, if a person would genuinely believe that his Parnasa is in the hands of heaven, that his Parnasa comes from Shemayim, just like the manna that fell 40 years in the desert, if you genuinely believe it, so then you'd get your Parnasa easily. We'd get our Parnasa very easily. What's the problem? Every time something, I accomplished this, it was my idea, and it's because I worked so hard, and well, I don't know that you deserve it so much. And if it doesn't go your way or you didn't get the job you wanted, then you got all sorts of gripes against God. That's the difficulty of Parnasa. The difficulty of Parnasa is not difficult for Hashem. It's difficult we make it difficult to deserve the Parnasa because of our lack of faith. That's what it means. Okay, you have to work and you have to make proper what's called hishtadlus. You have to make a proper effort, but we should never confuse our effort with the results. And Parnasa is hard. The Gemara says Parnasa is twice as difficult as labor for a woman. How do you like that? I don't know that you should tell that to your wife right before she's about to give birth, but that's what it says. And the reason, I'll get to you one second, Lenny. The reason is, what's the reason? I mean, labor ain't no party. right? Labor is not a party. Well, it is. It's a party in England. It's called Labor, but it's a political party. But labor, birth labor is no party, but it ends. Baby's born. Parnasa never ends. Parnasa is what they call 24/6 for a Jew. Is Parnasa. Lenny was going to ask something. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Question.
You talk about the Moshe actually extends his hand as to not confuse the people that the staff has mystical powers. But we read it, I think it was in Bay or maybe it was Bo.
He does the miracles with the staff. Yeah.
And it eats up the other staff.
And he does the staff, right. That's exactly why over here he's putting the staff away. To make sure everybody knows at the end of the day it's not the staff, it's the hand.
So why...
For whatever reason, over there it was using the staff. Now it's the time to show that it's not the staff.
So why was that time okay?
Don't know. That I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you remind, what is Parnasa?
Parnasa is a livelihood, earning a livelihood. Work. One of the things, I once called a guy, a former student. I said, how you doing? He said, okay. And how's work? He says, well, it's okay. I mean, it's not great. I mean, that's what they call it, work. I once there was a Russian guy, a Russian cab driver, pulled up with a beautiful Mercedes. Ooh, gorgeous Mercedes. And my birthday's coming up, guys, if you ever want to get me a gift. I told you, a green Mercedes. And I like green. And he pulls up beautiful Mercedes. So I said to this guy, wow, you got to get it? I said, wow, it's a really nice car. He goes, yeah, it is a nice car. There's only one problem. I got to work in it. That was a problem. It's Parnasa. Parnasa's hard. Parnasa is sweat. There's a story about a craftsman. And this craftsman somehow makes this lifelike horse. Beautiful horse, right? Mamish lifelike image of a horse. And he puts this horse out in public. And people just walk past. Nobody even gives it a second glance. And the guy's frustrated. He spent a lot of time making this horse. So he goes over to his friend. He says, what's the problem over here? I did all this effort, and nobody even gives it a second. Nobody appreciates it. So the guy said to him, listen, the problem is it's so lifelike. Everybody thinks it's a horse. Nobody glances. A lot of horses around. You're in a rural area. Nobody walks past. Everybody sees horses all the time. They just think it's another horse. I got an idea. Cut it in half and move the two halves away from each other. Then people will notice it. And sure enough, the guy does it. He breaks it, he cuts it in half, moves the two halves to the side. So people now come along and they say, hey, that's not a horse. That's a crap. Wow, now that's some serious craftsmanship over there. That's pretty impressive. So I saw one of the fortunate says, you see the ocean. Yeah, there's the ocean. There's the sea. I remember I drove from LA to San Diego, all the way down the coast, and you just see the Pacific Ocean over there. And I'm just looking like, oh, there's ocean. Big. Boy, the plane is big. That's a big ocean. After 5 or 10 minutes, I had enough. But, just so long you could look at water. But some people, anyway. But and you're just like, oh, there's ocean. Yeah, there's the Pacific Ocean. We take nature for granted. We don't realize, hey, Kosh Baruch Hu created this. At what point do you get reminded? When he splits the sea. Hashem splits the sea. Now, oh, wow, he split the sea. Well, the sea itself wasn't enough for you? The sea itself wasn't enough. Only when he splits the sea, only then it becomes enough. That's part of what happens in the miracle over here. Okay, now, take a look. The Jewish people go in. Now watch this. Here comes possibly the biggest miracle of all. Pasuk Chav Beis. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'soch hayam bayabah. So the Jewish people enter the sea on dry land. The water became a wall on both sides, and according to the Gemara, there was actually each tribe had its own path through. There wasn't just one block. There was 12 paths through the sea. And the Medrash says that, when you go to the sea, first of all, it doesn't smell good. It was a fragrant smell for the Jewish people. The sea has that sea smell. It was a fragrant smell for the Jewish people. You know where the bad smell of the sea comes? You know what the Gemara says? Each physical part of the world has a ministering angel in heaven. There's that's called Saroshel Yam, the angel of the sea. And there's the Sar of this and the Sar of that. Each one they have ministers. At one point, the angel of the sea God asked the angel of the sea to do something, and he didn't cooperate, whatever that means. So God put him to death. And his body in the sea is what causes the bad smell of the sea. There's a dead body in the sea of one of the ministering angels. How do you didn't know that, did you? Thought it was the fish. And now you find out it's one of the ministering angels. I mean, that's how you go to the sea and there's a bad smell in the sea. It's a kind of an unpleasant, it's not like being like chlorine in a pool, which you just love, right? It's like the ministering. Okay, number one, here it had a wonderful fragrance. Now you got a lot of kids. What are you going to feed them? So it says there were fruit trees growing out of the side. Like, what do you call vending machines? Growing with fresh water. There was fresh water for them to drink. Remember, they're in a state of fear. And with all this tumult, not one Jewish woman miscarried. How do you like that? Not one Jewish woman miscarried. With all this tumult, all the fear, not one Jewish. When Scud missiles landed in Israel, there were explosions where women miscarried. Here, with all the noise and all the tumult, nobody miscarried. Okay, these are all miracles. There's a listing, by the way, if you look at the Me'am Loes. Have you seen the Me'am Loes series in English? The Me'am Loes. There's a translation. We have it in the library. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan translated it into English. There's a listing of 50 miracles that took place at the Yam Suf. 50 miracles that took place at the sea. But here comes the biggest miracle of all. Take a look, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayirdefu Mitzrayim vayavo achreim. The Egyptians chase after the Jewish people. Kol sus paro richbo ufarashov. All the horse of Paro, his chariots, El Tochayam, they all chase into the sea. Now, this is the classic Mimonavshach. This is the classic thumbs up in both directions here. Why were the Egyptians chasing the Jewish people into the sea? If they thought it was a natural occurrence, well, if the water can naturally split, then water can naturally collapse back on you. That it is illogical to go into the sea just because the water split. Well, if the water split, the water could just as easily come collapsing back on you. What's the alternative? It's the hand of God. Then it makes even less sense. You just saw 10 plagues in Egypt, which was for the good of the Jewish people and worked against you. What are you doing running into the water for? It makes no sense. That itself was a miracle. Not even one kid in the back. One Egyptian kid in the back didn't yell out, "Hey guys, bad idea." Always the teenagers always know. Yeah, there wasn't one Egyptian teenager to share his wisdom with them. That's a miracle. And they go racing into the sea. Okay, one of the commentary, the Medrash says that some of the waves of the sea turn into female horses. They look like female horses. So even the Egyptians who were trying to break on the chariots, but the male horses went chasing the female horses into the sea. So they pulled them into the sea. Number one. Number two, so it doesn't make any sense. Now the Egyptians are all they go into the sea, and then Hashem turns to Moshe, says to Moshe on page 374. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, 3 lines from the top. Niteyes yadcha al hayam. V'yashuvu amayim ala Mitzrayim. Stretch your hand out, and the water will go back on the Egyptians. Al richbo v'al faroshav, and Moshe does it, and the Egyptians are drowned in the sea. And we say every day in Az Yashir, how they drowned, and so on and so forth. Now, what happens over here is that the people have a problem. They're worried that the Egyptians, maybe they drowned. I don't know if they drowned for sure. Are they all dead? So what happens? They come washing up on the shore. The Egyptians go washing up on the shore, and that's why it says, Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim meis al sfas hayam. They saw that they died on the shore, on the edge of the sea. Why did they have to see them on the edge of the sea? You're intimidated a little bit. I don't know, these Egyptians, I don't know what happened. Now let me just read you very quickly, because I have a listing over here. If we have time, just a few of the miracles that took place. That it was a miracle the Egyptians decided to chase them. according to some, the Egyptians outnumbered the Jewish people 300 to 1, and they were shooting arrows, and the clouds blocked them. All the water in the world split. The sea floor dried up for the Jewish people to walk on. The sea floor is not level. Back in the days when I did scuba dive, deep sea scuba diving, right off the coast of Acapulco, down there it doesn't look like, it's not in there, and so the sea had to level out.
And muddy.
Huh?
And wet.
It's wet, yeah, it's wet and muddy, and it became smooth. For the Egyptians, it was hot mud. They were being burnt also, and they're being tossed up and down and getting smacked on the waves, which were turned into rocks for the Egyptians. It was a bad day for the Egyptians. It was a very bad day. It says that trees grew out of the sides, so they had fruit trees over there. I told you there was there was a miracle that we said, and then it said, so this pasuk, if you look at the bottom pasuk over here, we have to finish, but right before, at the bottom of 372, this is the amusing one. It says, the Egyptians go in, and then, where is it? I'm sorry, bottom of 372. So it says, Vayhi ba'ashmoras haboker, it was towards the morning, Vayashkev Hashem al machane Mitzrayim be'amud eish ve'anon, he Hashem, how does he translate Vayashkev? He confounded the camp of Egypt. Vayoham eis machane Mitzrayim, Hashem looked down on them, and then look at the last line on 372. We finish with this. Vayosar es ofan markevosav. He removed the wheel of their chariots. Why wheel in the singular?
Then you kind of spin out. But
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what the commentaries say. If you knock off both wheels, say you bounce along straight. You take off one wheel, then you're in what you call a spin out. So they're bouncing around again. And the Medrash says they flew up in the air and their horses came down on them. But I once saw a good question. People ask, okay, so these are the Egyptians at the sea who get punished. But what happened to all the Egyptians all through the years in Egypt who tormented the Jewish people? What happened to them? How come it's only this generation? It's only the last generation of Egyptians that get punished. There's actually a Medrash says the ones from previous years were reincarnated as the horses. You like that, huh, Andrew? They were reincarnated as the horses. Now, I don't know how many horses there were. Maybe there were a few of them put into each horse. I don't know exactly how the reincarnation works. But the ones from the previous generation came back as the horses, so they got punished. They got their punishment to see. Yeah.
But all these theories make it harder to believe.
It depends. It's not hard for me to believe. Maybe for other people, it's not hard.
For general people.
I don't know. I'd have to take a survey and find out from general people. It's not.
Far from reality.
If some people may feel that is, but if they want to be obstinate and feel that it's not, it's hard to believe, they could be obstinate. It's a medrash that says it. If they have trouble, everything else, all other narishkeit they believe. Anything about what they tell us about space and what they tell us about this, and all the stories from history about George Washington never told a lie. That everybody they believe. That they're willing to believe. What the Torah says, people have trouble believing.
So some things are true, some things are...
I said.
How can we differentiate the two?
You have to ask Torah scholars to find out when to differentiate. I told you, you say nobody knows. That's quite a projection about saying nobody knows about Torah. There are those that say, for somebody who doesn't know to say that nobody knows, it's like me saying nobody knows about space travel. Nobody knows about space travel. It's all a joke. Nobody knows. I don't know anything about space travel. The people at NASA seem to know about space travel, so you have to ask them. In Torah, which I mentioned to you once before, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, that Torah is not something that a person could just express an opinion on without having studied for many years. When a person has studied Torah for many years, then they are in a position to express opinions on Torah. There are ways to know it, and Torah scholars do know which midrash.
Objectively, that we don't know if that's true or not.
You say we don't know if it's true.
Every rabbi always says we don't know if
I don't know what other rabbis say. I'll tell you. You know what you think. For sure you know what you think. You should really ask me what I think because I know more about the subject. You know what you think. Yeah. So the best thing to do is to ask me the question and then hear what I can tell you about it as opposed to arguing with me because you know what you think, but you don't know what I think. So if I would tell you what I think after having studied Torah for over 40 years, so then you might know more than what you think. So next time you'll ask me what I think, and I'll be glad to answer you. Mincha.